Congratulations, you just landed your first big design job. The hard part's over, you can take it easy. The hard part is actually just getting started. You see, once you get hired in a graphic design job, you have to then keep said graphic design job. So here's a few tips on how to keep a graphic design job and the psychology behind a successful career of design, things they don't really teach you in design school. You see, I used to think that good design would speak for itself, that so long as I did the work, that the results would be obvious, everybody would love it, and it would be amazing. It's actually not true at all. Graphic design, or any creative discipline, is really only like 40% about the work itself and 60% selling the idea. World-famous designer and partner at Pentagram, Michael Bierut once wrote, "When I graduated from design school, I thought that a great idea should sell itself." Not true. It turns out, coming up with the right solution to a design problem is only the first step. The next crucial step is convincing other people that your solution is the right one. Why is this so hard? Truer words about graphic design have never been spoken. When presenting your work, whether preliminary or final, you need to walk them through the process. Show them the rationale behind the ideas. You need to give context, and you should always have justification for everything that you do. Have a reason for everything, from the font choices to the color selection. You need to have reasons, data, research if you can. Back it up with cold hard facts. Don't just put your work on the screen and sit there in silence, like expecting them to get it and love it. It's never going to happen. You need to walk them through the process. You need to talk to them, tell a story, show them why you did what you did and how it points back to the original goals that you guys set forth at the beginning of the project. And don't just describe the work itself. They can see it, with their own eyes. But do call out certain details and expound upon certain areas of the work itself. And when asked questions like, why did you choose blue? Don't just sit there and say, I don't know, it just felt right, or I wanted to. Because emotions are subjective. These types of things are easily ignored or objected to. Facts, on the other hand, are a bit more concrete and not as easily dismissed, and people can connect to them a lot easier sometimes. This is because that there's the two sides of the brain, right? There's the side that's the more creative, there's the side that's the more analytical, and typically people tend to be on one side or the other. And in the course of your career, you're going to have to present to both sides of people. So you need to make sure that your presentations, that your work, caters to both types of personalities. So instead, say something like, well, I chose blue because it's in the calming spectrum of the color palette, and it'll put people at ease so that when they see it, they'll be more likely to absorb the messages we're trying to communicate to them. It might be total rubbish, but the guy at the other end of the table is totally buying it. So even if you don't know exactly what you're talking about, you should always kind of, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but you should never let them know that, no, I don't know, I just did it because I did it. Just make something up and make it sound believable. Eventually, you will have the right facts and answers to these types of questions. Over time, you'll become an expert and you don't have to just make stuff up. You'll have the right answers at the right time. But in the meantime, just make sure that they think of you as an expert at all times. Next, let's talk about what work you actually want to show to the client or your boss. Do not, under any circumstances, ever show them all of your doodles or sketches or concepts or that kind of stuff. Now, if it's an art director, creative director, fellow designer, somebody who's helping you co-create, that's something different. But as far as a client or a decision maker, you don't want to show any of that stuff to them. Because Murphy's Law states that everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And 9 times out of 10, if you show 3 concepts to the client and one of them is garbage, they're going to end up picking that one for no reason. It doesn't make any sense. So don't even give them that option. And if you're trying to go the extra mile and show that you're hardworking by showing all the work that you spent on the project and show them every single concept and sketch that you've ever done, it's probably going to backfire on you. You shouldn't show anything to the client that you're not prepared to love and commit to for the rest of the project. Because again, they could very likely pick the one that you hate and the one that's weak and terrible, and now you're totally screwed. And if they specifically ask to see something that is just a terrible idea, I found it useful to intentionally make that particular concept subpar so that it stands out like a sore thumb from the other ones. Or don't even show it at all and just say, yeah, I tried to make it work, I just couldn't get it to work. And that usually seems to, subdue them where they're like, okay, you tried, it just didn't work out. But if they are adamant and they push a little bit further, you can always offer to go back in and try to give it the old college try again. Remember, as a graphic designer, you're not just a monkey for hire, pushing on the keyboard, typing away. You are an intelligent person with the education, the experience, the expertise on this thing that we call design. You're the expert, you're the guide, and you should always remember that fact and never let the client take control, or in this case, a decision maker, a boss at a job, totally take control of the project away from you. You want to coexist with these people, so you can't just totally go rogue and do your own thing, but you are able to make them feel like they're in control and making the decisions, but you're actually kind of guiding them in the right way that the project should go. So now let's talk briefly about not just what you present, but how you present. Never underestimate the power of a good, slick presentation. A nice, clean pitch deck can work wonders. I pretty much always use a presentation or pitch deck of some sort when presenting my work, whether it's a huge project for a large, gigantic company, or it's just a small project for a side client. This helps tremendously in selling your idea because it makes it feel more fleshed out, more polished, more pizzazz. People like that, and it's really effective actually. Because remember, you're trying not just to show your work, you're trying to sell them on why your idea, why your solutions are the right solutions. So when you're creating a pitch deck, what I would recommend doing is just create like a universal template in your favorite program. So my favorite program to use when creating pitch decks is Adobe InDesign. I like it because it's got awesome features like character and paragraph styles, hyperlinks, and a really small file size when it exports. And it makes it super simple to create new decks in the future. Since we pretty much always look at content on a screen these days, I would recommend creating your canvas size in the 16:9 ratio. That way, whether you're showing on a TV, a tablet, even your phone, it's going to be already formatted in size and ready to go. So when I build a pitch deck, I always start with a couple opening slides, like a nice cover slide that has the project name, maybe the date, the revision number, something like that. And then you go into a few introductory slides to kind of set the stage and give context for the work you're about to show. Remember, you want to tell a story, paint a picture. Don't just go straight for the kill. Build a little bit of anticipation, whet their appetite. Then you can show them the work. Usually 2 or 3 concepts, could be more, depending on the scope and the project. And then after that, you'll want to show mock-ups. You always want to have mock-ups. And what I mean by mock-ups is showing the work in a real-life situation. So for instance, if you're doing a logo design, you don't just want to show the vector art of the logo design itself. You want to show what it would also look like on business cards or letterhead or on a website or on a t-shirt or something that you would actually see it in real life. And there's tons of great resources online for this kind of thing, and it really helps to make it believable and real in the viewer's mind. After the work section, you can have a kind of a conclusion section that talks about, summarizes the project and provides potential next steps. And in the very, very back, if you need it, you can have an appendix, which includes additional work and images and resources and things like that don't really fit into the main meat of the deck, but depending on how the conversation goes in the moment, you can quickly jump to the back and pull up things and show them to talk about. Again, I can't overstate the importance and the power of a good pitch deck. It's not going to make up for shoddy work. I mean, it's not going to, make something terrible look good. You can't hide behind a fancy presentation to cover up shoddy work. The work itself has to be solid. So keeping all this in mind, we talked about your role as a graphic designer being that of a guide or an expert, a storyteller, kind of pushing the process along. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the client has the final say. And there's a good amount of politics and psychology that goes into this entire process. Kind of like that old saying goes, that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. We have to have done everything that we can to make sure that the solution is the right solution, but ultimately, it's out of our hands. And as unfortunate as it sounds, silly things like people's egos, office politics, or people on power trips can get in the way of good work. It's unfortunate, but it's just the reality of the world we live in. So you need to accept this as fact, as reality, and kind of use it to your advantage instead of getting hung up on the fact that that is the way that it is. For instance, if your boss likes to assert their will from time to time just because they can, and like to make decisions that aren't necessarily the best, let them win, On the smaller projects where it doesn't really matter, let them win. You have to learn how to pick and choose your battles. But on the really big stuff, the stuff that's really important for the brand or the company, those are the ones that you should go down swinging for. Think of it like a design bank, and you have a certain amount of currency or coins that you can spend. You want to save it and only spend it on the things that really matter. So when you really need to have your voice be heard, you can spend them in those types of ways. And then the smaller, projects that don't really matter, like the internal stuff or whatever it is, let them win.